And we can all start over. Who wrote the rule that said we can't? Like, that rule isn't there. So many people feel like, well, I can't just start over. You can do exactly what you want to do to help live the most fulfilling life that you want.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of Power Purpose Play. As you know, we are a global platform which is really dedicated to advancing the personal growth and inner power of women in midlife. Our goal is to help you rediscover yourself as you move forward in the next chapter of your life. To that end, I interview incredible women every week who will serve as an inspiration for you and who will also give you examples of how to face the obstacles in your way and take that first step towards rediscovery. I'm very excited today to introduce this week's guest, Sara Arnell. Sara is a former advertising CEO, author, and professor at the New School's Parsons School of Design. Her 30-year career in fashion, writing, and advertising broke new ground, winning awards and global recognition for her work and its clients. Sara is the mother of 3 children and 1 small poodle. In her new book, There Will Be Lobster, Memoir of a Midlife Crisis, Sara offers a look into her personal struggles and how it took a rogue lobster, a dying rock star, an 18-pound tumor, a meditation guru and a famous medium, and a former monk to put her on the path towards light, hope, and healing. It is Sara's hope that anyone who reads this book is given the hope that they can too rise back up, no matter how far they think they may have fallen. So welcome to the show, Sara. I am really so pleased to have you here. How are you today?
Great. And thank you, Kavita, for having me. I'm thrilled to be chatting with you about the book.
Yes. We'll get into a whole bunch of things. So firstly, yes, about the book, absolutely loved the memoir. And
thank you.
Just for a reminder, the title is called There Will Be Lobster, Memoir of a Midlife Crisis, which is the name of the book. And I really loved it because it is honestly so real, honest, and refreshing to learn about your journey and what you realized as a result of the journey. And for the sake of our audience, and hopefully everybody at the end of this will read your book, but for those of them who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you went from being in advertising for 30 years to so many personal struggles that you describe in the book.
Okay, well,
yeah.
So what kind of happens, and the reason why I sort of subtitled it Memoir of a Midlife Crisis, I think as women, we hit a point in our life. For me, it was midlife, when things sort of start to really change for you. And in a way, it's stereotypical, but in a more positive side at looking at that stereotypical situation, it's also quintessential. And things start happening to you that you can't really help. Your kids grow up and they inevitably leave the house. Your body starts to change. Your skin starts to change. If you go through menopause, you're probably experiencing hot flashes. Like, things are changing that you can't help. Mm-hmm. And your memory may be slipping, surprisingly, which is what happens sometimes in midlife. And I mean, I tell a story in the book where I'm, getting in my car as normal, driving down the road, And then all of a sudden I'm driving and I can't remember where the heck I'm going. And I'm just blanking, driving down the road, trying to remember why am I in my car and what I'm doing. And then it comes back to you and, I went to go pick up some food.
Right.
But these things happen to you. So stuff started happening in my life that was changing how I saw myself. And my problem was I didn't want other people to see me that way. And so I sort of hid everything from everybody and kind of plowed along like the strong woman I always saw myself as, not telling anybody I wasn't feeling so good, not telling anybody I was struggling, not telling anybody I was really depressed because my youngest child had just left for college. I was now an empty nester. I had lost my business. Meanwhile, I had gone through a divorce years earlier. My whole life was different. And I was just walking around like it was fine. And so this was a journey this was something I thought, I don't want anyone else to go through this. I want people to realize there's no shame in this, just self-empowerment. If you can face it and get the kind of help you need from friends, family, or professionals if you want to. And that's what I wrote about. That journey.
Yes. And you're so right, because I think we often try and fight it, and it's actually a natural thing, and it's a normal thing to feel a lot of these, what you described, it could be your relationships changing, it could be your kids leaving, it could be your health, it could be all these things all at once. But the thing is, how do you actually deal with it? And one of the reasons I've created Power Purpose Play is for women to be together and as community to realize that you are not alone. So you have the support. And the other thing is that you talk about when your children left the home and you experienced a lot of sadness and loneliness, and that happens because we're used to looking after so many other people and ourselves kind of like coming last, right? And so if there was one or two main things you'd want to share with the audience about your book, one of the lessons as a result of probably, the main thing that happened was when your youngest daughter left. But will be something that you would share, maybe one or two main lessons you could impart from the book?
Well, we often seek validation as we go through life as women for kind of how we're connected. Like I'm a mom, or I'm a wife, or I'm a working woman, or I'm a this or that. And when those things kind of start to fall away, and we can also just hide everything we're going through in the name of being busy, right? We're so busy. We're working. We're breadwinners. We're caregivers. We're taking care of anyone else. And we often put ourselves last because of that. And then in the end, we end up feeling unworthy and uncared for because we're not caring for ourselves. And it's really, I think one of the things that I really learned is that I had to care for myself as much as I cared for everybody around me. And it's not self-indulgent. It's not. And I'm not talking about the kind of care that's about taking a bath on Sunday night or having a facial. I'm talking about the real kind of care for understanding who you are and what you want out of life, and knowing that it's okay to pursue it, that you're not being negligent in other aspects. You're not being selfish or self-serving. You're being self-loving.
Oh my God, that speaks to my heart, because I'm launching it. I've launched a new course, and it's called It's My Time Now.
There you
and
go.
It really is. It's really our time now. And then that doesn't mean, and a lot of times people would say, well, that's really being selfish. It's not. It's not. If you look after yourself, and like you said, it's not necessarily, I'm going to go get a massage or I'm going to have a bath. It's about, what do you really want inside you, and how do you get there? And that's so important, because if you take care of yourself, then you're actually better able to be there for other people, the people that you care about.
100%. 100%. And it's like this dichotomy in thinking where there's so many studies and so many people out there who say the best way for you to feel better is to do something for somebody else. So this idea of living a life of service, either toward your own dreams and goals or toward helping someone else's, is how I think happiness starts to bubble up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have taken out several quotes from your book that I wanted to get your get your thoughts on, but there's one that I can read if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's this one quote: "I learned that nothing external changes for you unless things change inside you first." Or, said the more commonly quoted way, "When things change inside you, things change around you." Happiness is not on the other side of achievement. Happiness is what propels achievement. Finding what makes you healthy, happy, and whole is a horse, not the cart. We all have lobster moments. Think about yours and how you can use it to change your life from the inside out. So similar to what we were talking about, but perhaps you have some thoughts on what that means to you.
So I had felt depressed, felt sad, felt lost and lonely and alone for so much of the time I write about in the book. And trying to make myself feel better kind of became this very external search for things. I would go shopping. I love that bag. I'm going to get that bag. It's going to make me feel better.
Right.
That lasts 5 minutes, right? Like now I have the bag and I just spent a whole bunch of money I probably shouldn't have. And it's sitting there and I'm not really going out or going anywhere. So you suddenly now feel even worse.
Right.
And then I was trying to just find happiness in doing things outside myself and like really kind of consuming, going to events, going to concerts, doing a lot of things in the world of spirituality, seeing tarot card readers and psychics and mediums. And in this whole little search, which somebody sort of said to me was, it's like this crazy wild ride that you went on, only to come back and find that what you had was already inside you. And if you want to change what's going on around you, you have to change how you see things first, what your perspective is. In my case as well, what was also changing inside me was that I was diagnosed with chronic leukemia. So my blood was literally changing inside me. And that was quite a revelatory moment that I had to change my entire life from the inside out and care for myself more, love myself more, take better care of my health and wellness and the happiness that would come to ease the stress. Because stress, as we know, is one of the worst things for your mind and your body and your soul. It's debilitating. So the change starts inside with how you look at the outside world and how you see yourself living in that world, not trying to grab things from the outside world and bring in and say, does this make me happy? Nah, I'm going to try something else. Does this make me happy? No, it's the other way around.
Right. It's all inside. Firstly, I read about your diagnosis and thank you for sharing that. And how are you doing now?
It's a very, thankfully, slow moving form of blood cancer. It is what they call watch and wait. And that's what you do. You just
that must be frustrating.
You wait. Well, I mean, yes. I go to the hematologist about every 6 months. I get my blood tested. We see how the disease is progressing. It's always progressing, but thankfully it progresses so slowly. I currently don't need any treatment. But I do have to take very, very good care of myself and make sure that I'm not catching anything, getting ill, and just getting the sleep I need, the food I need, and the calm I need.
Right. It's so true what you said, and about everything kind of coming from the inside, and we all sometimes look for external things to make us happy. I'll be happy when, or I'll be satisfied when I get this or do that or that. And I think as we progress in life, it's like you realize that unless you're happy inside, it's not gonna work. I mean, it's not, nothing external is going to fix it.
Right. Although, right? Don't get me wrong. It is fun to go shopping.
Oh, of course.
Treat yourself to a little thing. But those are just sort of niceties that you kind of do for yourself or satisfy a whim or an urge. But they aren't the cure.
Of course.
They aren't going to be the thing that's going to make you suddenly find that inner joy that you feel like you need to.
Yes. You talk about in that quote, you said we all have lobster moments. For those of you people who haven't read the book, what does it mean? And what do you mean by the lobster moment?
So the title of the book, There Will Be Lobster, it's right in the first chapter of the book. So I write about this time in my life where it was actually a New Year's Day, and I had been at my house for New Year's Eve with about 10 or 15 people were there. I was going to have a huge New Year's Day brunch at the house. My daughter had come home from college with her boyfriend. It was going to be a really lovely family moment, family and friends. And I had bought lobsters, and I was going to cook them for brunch, and we were going to eat them. The New Year's Eve party got really out of control the night before. And when I got downstairs the next morning, extremely hungover, the kitchen was a disaster. Half the food that I had kind of prepped for brunch had been eaten. It was thrown all around. I don't know what had happened. I don't really remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I sort of was making a coffee, my head was pounding. I'm sitting there drinking my coffee. I'm immediately regretting, oh no, a slipcover on the chair moves at my kitchen table. And I'm looking at this slipcover just wiggling on the floor, and I'm staring at it. And this red claw just comes out from under the chair. And I'm watching this, like this claw like this come out. And then, of course, the rest of the whole lobster emerged. And it was the only lobster that survived. I had quickly looked at the stove and saw a giant pot and realized somebody had cooked all the lobsters we were going to have for brunch. But I looked at that lobster and I suddenly thought, this is now me. This is my lobster moment. This was my sort of awakening moment. It shook me to the core. I related to that lobster. I said, this guy crawled out into the open after who knows what madness ensued the night before and survived. And that's what I have to do too. And I think we all have moments where we're sort of going through life and something just stops us in our tracks. And it makes us realize I can't go on anymore. This can't go on anymore. Whatever the topic is, it has to come to an end. I need to make a change. And that's what I sort of keep calling my lobster moment. Mm-hmm.
I love the way you described that. That was shocking, firstly, but then it puts you back into reality. It's like, okay, things have to change. And this kind of leads into my next question, is that you describe a lot of the struggles you went through in your life, but you also had a lot of signs along the way. And I think we all have signs that often come our way, but we don't really recognize these signs. And at the end, you said it was the encounter with the monk that made the difference. And again, I'm going to read this quote because I really like this as well. And you say in the book that the monk stopped being a monk when he took off his robe. I never thought it would be this simple to define change in oneself, to forge a new path, to instigate a new way of being. I finally realized that I had the opportunity and power all along to take off my robe, to lose the trappings of what I thought defined me, to let go. So the point about the power that you realize, that the power that you've got, and that's one of the reasons that it's called Power, Purpose, Play, is I really believe in that inner power that we all have. So describe to us how you felt that once you got that inner power, and how do we get that, or how do we find that?
Yeah. So through the whole book, so I really feel like through the whole book, I'm really leading readers to the edge of a cliff through my sort of self-pity. And I really try to show that self-pity takes you right to the edge of a cliff. It's not where you want to be. And when you're searching and seeking in the wrong way, which I thought I was, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but in a way that wasn't helping me find what I wanted. I had met this monk at a book fair, and he had written a book on sleep and darkness and the importance of sleep and health and wellness and how we sort of function as a society. So he was a former Buddhist monk, and I had asked him after his lecture at the book fair, how did you stop becoming a monk? And he said, I just took my robe off and walked away. And again, I mean, that was probably like another lobster moment for me. And I just said, really? And he said, I just took it off and walked away. And I thought, is that easy? He said, yeah, it's that easy because it's a decision. So sure, the physical act of taking your robe off and walking away is kind of the physical sort of a manifestation of what he did, but what he really did was make a very firm decision inside that he did not want to be a Buddhist monk anymore. And just kind of making that decision and walking away from it to go live a different life that he wanted and working to make that life come to fruition for him was something that I thought, I can do that too. I can remove everything that I now know is holding me back or not serving me or helping me and go find the life that I want to lead. And I love that metaphor of just taking the robe off, taking it off and walking away and almost starting over again.
Yeah. And that's kind of, it's the decision. I think that's a really key thing you said. It's a decision you make to do that. And then that's where I think that's where you really start getting the inner power within you to say, I can do this. And then that propels you to take the first step and the next step. And
we can all start over.
Yeah.
Who wrote the rule that said we can't? Like, that rule isn't there. So many people feel like, well, I can't just start over. You can do exactly what you want to do to help live the most fulfilling life that you want.
At any age, right? And then, yes, we talked a little bit when we spoke earlier about the term the midlife crisis. And I kind of have an issue with that phrase because it's really stereotypical about getting the sports car and doing all this. And it's just a midlife crisis. Whereas I like to see it as kind of a reinvention. And by reinvention, I don't mean like you become somebody completely new. It's you take whatever has been inside of you that's always been wanting to come out and bring that out into the world. And so I know what your thoughts are on that phrase or the whole period of life that we kind of all face. And is it a crisis or is it?
I kind of liked the idea that it was a crisis because I thought that, well, at least if I'm in crisis, I've got something to solve or figure out versus nothing or nothingness, which felt even more dire to me somehow. So the idea of kind of thinking I'm in a midlife crisis, and it was midlife for me, literally. So and it was just that time where everything was changing. And that happens for a lot of women. It's just a reality that that's the time of our lives where we finally get to stop doing some things we've been doing, like raising the children who have moved out. Although I will tell you, they never really leave because I have adult children who are now back home. Anyway, which is wonderful. But it's the time in life where you actually are forced to change so many things. Change happens to you. You're not really necessarily affecting it, but how you deal with it is what's really, really important. Right. And for me, the idea of a crisis, I always felt like I was a problem solver in work and in business and at home. I always felt like I was the one who could fix things, do things, solve stuff. So I kind of like the idea that, I'm in a crisis because it tried to make me, it let me try to solve it.
Yeah, well, we definitely are in this phase of life where everything changes. But I think if we view it as an opportunity rather than a crisis, I think that's what. Yeah. It can be hard when you're in it, for sure. But let's try and maybe rephrase it to an opportunity. So the other thing we talk a lot about here is our obstacles that we face. And then sometimes we impose those obstacles on ourselves, like we're not good enough or I'm not smart enough or qualified or whatever enough to do the thing that I want to do. And so it's often difficult to kind of get the courage to go after what you really want. And from your story, you obviously developed the courage to move on. So maybe you can describe, how does somebody gain that courage when they're kind of fearful of what the future holds and if they can manage it or if they have it in them to go forward?
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I would think, I know for me that, and the whole reason I wrote this book really was, the first thing that I needed to do was take responsibility for what happened in my life, for the mess I saw that my life had become. And so I needed to take responsibility for what I did to myself. I needed to take responsibility for what I did to others along the way, and give the pain I went through meaning, and give the growth that came from that pain meaning as well. So I think part of trying to, because we live in shame a lot when we've kind of gone through a very hard time and we're not at the point where we want to be in our life, a lot of time we feel shame. And I think first by telling the story, and you don't have to write a book, but at least tell the story to yourself about how, or people that you love that are with you, on how you got to where you are. Own it, take responsibility for it. Make sure you're feeling all the things that you need to feel, and then relook at them in a more positive light. And I think that'll give you self-empowerment to move forward and pursue what you want to do now. Taking responsibility, acknowledging, writing your story, telling your story, acknowledging your story is a healthy way to kind of ground yourself in where I'm at now. No shame, just self-empowerment to move forward.
And that gives you the courage, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And I think remembering also what we are good at, what we've accomplished in life, and not always thinking about what we don't have, or what we're not good at, or what we're the negative things, and always celebrating ourselves. Because as women, we often don't do that enough. And right. So yeah, thanks for that. Those are some great tips. If there's one quote from the book that you think would really benefit our audience going through similar struggles, perhaps, or trying to figure out what to do next, is there one quote that stands out for you, or one passage you'd like to share?
Yeah, let me grab the book. So I love chapter 14, which is called Smile Therapy. And in this chapter, my younger daughter is telling me that I should just try to be happy by just smile. Just if you put a smile on your face, Mom, at least maybe it'll get some happy hormones going. Like, there's data around that, Mom. Like, just try to smile. It might make you feel better.
Right.
So in sort of her telling me this, I started to reminisce in this chapter about in my life in business and in just as being a parent, how many times that people would come to me and tell me they felt sad or they didn't feel good. And I would say, oh, just cheer up. And so can I read a little bit?
Yes, please do. Yes.
I had no reason or motivation to do anything except look in the mirror and gasp at what I had let myself become, or rather, what I would not let myself become. I didn't think I deserved happiness or joy or contentment. I could not cheer up. And I kind of really love that sentiment in this book, because telling someone to cheer up when they're depressed is one of the most useless and unhelpful things that anyone can do. And even trying to tell yourself, oh, you just got to cheer up, is not going to help. So I saw a friend not that long ago, and I said to her, I ran into her on the street, hey, how are you? And she said, oh, I'm fine. My life's a mess, but I'm coping. I'm trying to be cheerful. And that's such a red flag, because you have to, but when someone says, fine, I'm just like, sirens start going off.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Red flag.
Yes, right.
Not okay. And there's something wrong. And saying, well, cheer up. Things will get better. That's when you need to grab yourself or grab your friends and say, let's sit down and talk about it. If you really care, this is a conversation that needs to happen. And telling someone to just cheer up is a way to try to boost their spirits. It's not going to work when you're really, really depressed.
I think that's such an important message, because it also speaks to the fact that you have to really acknowledge what you're going through. And if you can't deal with it yourself, then speak to somebody, talk to somebody, reach out to somebody, whether it's your family or friends or some professional help, community, or somebody you can't let it stir inside of you, because then you're just lying to yourself, right?
Yeah. Don't
Saying,
pretend.
I'm fine,
Yeah,
when you're not really fine.
Don't pretend everything's okay when it's not.
Yes.
And then if somebody comes to you for help, don't be the cheer up person. Don't be the person who says, well, let's sit down and talk about it. How can I really help you? How are you feeling?
Yes. That's so important. I think that's really, especially nowadays, there's in the last 2 years, we have all gone through so many things in the world and the pandemic, and so much has kind of upheaval in our lives. And a lot of people are going through changes internally, externally, and it's so important to just not to ignore if you're really feeling badly about it. So that's a great point. So I just really loved the book, and I loved all the messages that you have imparted. And it must have taken quite a lot of courage to write that book, firstly, because pretty vulnerable. And I'm sure that was difficult for you. Was it? Or?
I mean, sure, because I had to come clean first and foremost, right? I was living a life on paper. Well, the life I was living didn't look like the life I had on paper. So I felt like I was kind of living a lie. Like it looked one way to others, but it really wasn't that way to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, I was always turning down invitations. Oh, I'm so busy, I can't do that. But I was really just in bed eating and crying. And so I had to really come clean about the people that I hadn't been honest with about how I was feeling and what I was doing and what I had been going through. And I had to really have very deep conversations with my children, because I wanted to be able to include them in the book, because they're such an integral part of my life and what happened to me. And they were supportive right from day one, but it was really kind of hard to kind of revisit everything.
Yes.
But in the end, of course, it was worth it. But if you're going to write a memoir, right?
Yes, please tell us. Tell us, give us some tips.
You better tell the truth.
Yes, of course.
So I didn't want to write this memoir that was sort of glossed over the uglier bits and pieces.
Yes.
And I just thought, I can't possibly be the only one in the world who's gone through this. There's got to be other people that really struggle like this. And why not just put it out there? And maybe somebody else who really, really went through a hard time, maybe they're sort of have regret for things that they did. I know I have, and embarrassed for things that they did. I know I did. I'm sort of embarrassed about some of the stuff I did too. I don't really look at it that way anymore. I've changed my perspective on that. Yeah, sure. I can look back and be like, that was so embarrassing, but I'm not living in that shame anymore.
Right, right.
And I just thought, I'm going to put it all out there, because what's the point of writing a book if you're not going to be really open and really honest and really vulnerable, because it's got to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. That is so selfless. That really is selfless, because firstly, it takes a lot of bravery and courage to do that, to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that I don't know how people have reacted, but hopefully they've reacted positively, because the message that you're sharing is there to help others. Like you said, you're not the only one. You're not the only woman who's gone through this. And I think you even had that in the beginning.
Yeah.
So you're not the only one who's had their children go away but you were able to share your story, and so for others to learn from. So that's really courageous, I would say.
No, thank you. Like, I wanted to just be an example.
Yeah.
If I could do it, you can too. Look at how low I sunk, and I've managed to get back on my feet and feel like a happy, whole, healthy, contributing person to myself, my family, and society.
I was going to ask you, so what are you doing now, and how has it been since the book's been released, and what are you up to now, and where can our listeners find the book and learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing? So
I'm doing a ton of speaking about the book, which I love. I've done a book tour, podcasts such as yours, which I'm really thankful for, because I get to speak to audiences that I normally wouldn't get to reach. Right. And I mean, it's very weird launching a book during a pandemic, because everything is online and
yes.
But I guess that's the good news, is that we are on Zoom, and I can still chat about this topic that's really important to me.
Sure.
So that's really what I'm doing. And I'm speaking it. There's a bunch of book clubs. A lot of women have decided to read this book for a book club. And because of Zoom, I will be Zooming into their final discussions.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. And so it doesn't matter where they are because I can Zoom into wherever they are.
I love that. I can Zoom into.
Zoom right into their final.
Zoom right in. Okay. Fantastic.
Fun. And then I'm teaching at Parsons. I'm teaching 2 courses, which start next week. So, fall.
What are you teaching there?
I'm teaching marketing, advertising, and branding.
Fantastic.
And all online still. So I'm not at the university yet, but I will probably be for spring, but not yet. So once again, I'm Zooming in.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I think firstly, I love to write too. So it has kind of given me inspiration to finally write that book that I want to write about. And the lessons you've imparted and sharing your story it's just wonderful. And I encourage everyone listening to pick up a copy and read it or read it online, I guess, since we're online, right? Yeah.
I narrated the Audible version myself.
Oh, did you?
And if you get that, you can hear me read it.
Oh, okay. Was that a little emotional to do that?
The whole thing was emotional. I mean, writing the book I cried a lot during the writing of the book. It made you relive things again that you didn't necessarily want to live the first time.
I'm sure.
But when you did relive them and I was writing it and I kept thinking, well, I'm reliving it for hopefully the good of myself and everybody around me. It made it okay. But it was an emotional process. I'll say one thing, Kavita, that really is something I think important for a lot of people to keep in mind, that when you're trying to tell somebody how you feel or felt, and they say to you, I never knew that. I think that's, again, such an important, make sure that nobody, again, in your life can say to you, I never knew that. Because if that's what people are telling you, you're keeping things to yourself too much. You're not reaching out for the help you need. You're not sharing your thoughts and feelings. So I never knew that becomes for me such a touchstone of not being open enough about what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. And that's what you don't want anyone to have to say that to you. You want people to say to you, yes, I know, and I'm here for you.
That made me very emotional. And thank you. I was going to say, do you have any final messages? But that I think that tops them all. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to meet you, and more to come, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Sara.
Thank you, Kavita.
I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Sara Arnell, and I'm sure you will as well. The author of There Will Be Lobster, Memoir of a Midlife Crisis, Sara offers a look into her personal struggles and how we can all learn from her story. She explains how lobster moments, or moments of crisis and triggers, can be the turning point for transition, and that we all have the power to take off our robes and lose the trappings of what we think defines us. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, there is no shame in midlife changes, just self-empowerment, if you can face it and get the kind of help that you need. 2, you have to care for yourself as much as you care for everyone else around you, and it's not self-indulgent. 3, the idea of living a life of service either towards your own dreams and goals or towards helping someone else's is how happiness starts to bubble up. 4, change starts inside with how you look at the outside world and how you see yourself living in that world. Not trying to grab things from outside to see if they make you happy. It's the other way around. 5, we all have moments where we are going through life and something just stops us in our tracks, and it makes us realize this can't go on anymore, when we realize we need to make a change. 6, we can all start over. Who wrote the rule that says we can't? 7, make sure that nobody again in your life can ever say to you, I never knew that. Because if that's what the people are telling you, you are keeping too much to yourself. You want people to be able to say, I know, and I'm here for you. Thank you so much for being here. You could be so many places, so we appreciate you taking your time for yourself, for your own personal growth.
If you enjoy what we stand for at Power Purpose Play, you will love our newest offering. I reinvented myself after 50, and I'm giving you the exact framework and process I used to get where I am today. This is in a course called It's My Time Now, How to Rediscover Yourself in Midlife. It is about finding yourself again, and I'm your guide on this incredible journey. All the details are in the links below, and I'm so excited to tell you that the doors to this opportunity are now open. Will you take the time for yourself? As Sara says, change starts inside of you, and we all have the ability to tap into that inner voice with intention and guidance. You can listen to a free mini training with links below where I go through the first step in the pyramid of reinvention. You can learn independently, in groups, or privately with me as your personal coach. Please book a free 15-minute call with me directly if you have any questions at all. If you're wondering what's next in your life, I know I can help you figure that out. Till next week, in love and in light.